So, The Walking Dead, The Last of Us, World War Z, and Zombieland. There is one thing that all of these awesome movies slash TV shows have in common, and that is the undead. What do you think? A horde of zombies gunning for our lives, or maybe a parasitic virus that wants to make us its meat puppets? Could this become a reality? I, for one, believe that it could happen, even if it is in distant future. But I also know for a fact that this, in fact, is the truth in at least in a digital universe. So here we are to talk about digital cordyceps and how a user lifecycle management solution can help you fight against the zombie attacks. Sun Tzu said in his controversial yet confusing book called The Art of War, it says that knowing the enemy is winning half the battle. So let's get to know what we are up against. Let's get to know how a user account is born and how it may transform into a zombie account. In today's day and age, any service that we want to use, we have to create an account for it. And the typical stages that an account goes through is birth. So you create an account, you flourish, you breathe, you do some transactions, and if you flourish enough, you get promoted. You have some additional privileges thrust upon your account, you have some additional responsibilities thrust upon you as an individual. And eventually, when you are ready to move on, or if unfortunately you are fired from the organization, or let's make it even more tragic, if you die, this account is supposed to be deactivated. But sometimes this last step is missed. Sometimes this account comes back to wreak havoc within your organization. And this is what we call a digital zombie. Don't worry about him, he's my pet, he doesn't bite. Don't worry. Now that we know what a digital zombie is, let's take a look at the subspecies of a zombie account. Broadly, they can be categorized into two. One is a long and forgotten account, and second is when somebody parasitizes a live account. Both of these species of zombies exist within organizations on a pretty regular basis, but no one really cares about them until they start making some noise. No one really cares about them until they put on a mask of an attacker. There have been significant attacks in the past, cyber threats, data thefts, ransomware deployments that have targeted major organizations, which we'll take a look, but that is further down the line. But before that, let's take a look at how a zombie account may be formed. So let's take a look at the first one, that is long and forgotten account. Forgotten accounts are born one of 3 ways, which is contradictory to the singular way that normal living humans reproduce. The zombie accounts can be born either if an account is missed during an exit procedure. So when an employee leaves, or when an employee is fired, or when he dies, his account should be deactivated, disabled, or decommissioned. But sometimes some accounts fall through the cracks and they can later become zombies. The next one is a temporary account that was created as a collaboration between 2 or more companies, projects, teams, or maybe a third party, a contractor that you've hired to do some work for you guys. You give them some access, and when the job is done, maybe you forget to take away that access and decommission that account. That again is a zombie account. And lastly, last one is actually a good event. Let's say an employee is being promoted to a new role, and let's say if he is being moved from Indian organization to American one, because he's being moved, I would assume that he has some significant access rights, significant privileges to his account. So when he's moving, ideally his access to the Indian critical resources should be revoked, but sometimes that is overlooked. That creates a zombie account within the Indian ecosystem. That pretty much covers how a long and forgotten account might be created. Now let's take a look at the cordyceps outbreak. I mentioned cordyceps because that is actually the parasitic fungus that exists in our biological ecosystem right now, which takes over the host's body and makes them do its bidding so that it can puppet the host to lead them to its maybe stronghold so that it can infect more people. But that's a biological deep dive, I won't get into that. So cordyceps or parasitic accounts can be born if they are using weak or repetitive passwords using brute force techniques, or it can be if an attacker has access to stolen credentials, he can access your account, essentially taking over without you knowing it, or it can be if the attacker is targeting some poor individual by doing some social engineering tactics. This can be phishing, targeted emails, calling and pretending to be somebody else so that they give them access to OTPs. Remember this can because I'll call back to this one later. And it can also be because he can purchase data off of dark web. This is typically due to data breaches and data dumps on the dark web. So now that we know what a zombie is, what are its types, and how are they born, let's take a look at the havoc that they have wreaked in the major ecosystem among the major players in the past few years. I'll focus on 3 main case studies, but apart from that, I'd like to discuss one more, that is Uber. I won't be focusing much on Uber because there was not a big monetary impact on Uber because the attack was done by a 17-year-old kid who just wanted to prove that he could do it. So what happened in the case of Uber was the attacker got access to an ex-employee's account off of dark web and he managed to log in, but he was stopped by an MFA prompt. So he was pretty smart, so he called the victim pretending to be an Uber admin, saying he needed some access to his account to maybe delete the account or verify some rides, any valid reason. But the employee was also smart. He was saying that, why are you calling me after I've left the organizations after many months? So he cut the call. But since the MFA method that was deployed was a push notification, the attacker managed to spam the employee, essentially annoying him into accepting yes just once or clicking on yes just once. But now that he had accepted the 2FA prompt, he was able to gain access to his account and essentially gain access to Uber systems. When he had the attack, he simply went on Uber's official Slack channel and posted what he had done. But since he was not a malicious individual, he just wanted to prove that he could do it. He told the Uber security admin what he had done and how he had done. Uber did disclose this, but they guised it as it was a pen testing attempt, so there was no monetary impact. But that's pretty much it. Uber has also suffered another data breach, but that is not as dependent on having a zombie account within the system. Anyway, let's focus on these two. Marriott, everybody knows what Marriott hotel chains are. This happened back in 2018, and the next one that we'll focus on is Target, the American shopping giant. So let's look at the reason and fallout behind both of these attacks. Starting with Marriott, the Marriott attack happened in 2018, and so back in 2016 or 2015, Marriott acquired a smaller hotel chain by the name Starwood, and at the time of acquisition, they didn't really do a security audit of Starwood systems. If they had, they would have found out that Starwood's infrastructure was infected with malware and other remote access tools. This was the mistake number one. When they acquired, they laid off some employees, which is pretty common in acquisitions or hostile takeovers. When they laid off some employees, they missed to decommission few of the accounts of the people that were laid off. Mistake number two. And when they moved with the merger and they launched their operations, since they didn't have their own infrastructure in place, they incorporated some of Starwood systems into their own infrastructure, essentially infecting their own systems with the malwares and the remote access tools. So because of the combination of a zombie account and infected system, the attackers were able to gain access to Marriott's user database, and they stole the personal information of over 500 million guests. Since Marriott is a big hotel chain, primarily it's an international hotel chain, the personal data that was leaked was passport numbers, social security numbers, email IDs, phone numbers, and maybe most scariest of them all, that is physical addresses of the guests. So if somebody knows something about the dark web, you can hire hitman to kill people. So if they know the physical address, you could do that. Anyway, moving on, it is estimated that the monetary damage was around 120 million. And this does not cover the legal and the reputation damage. If we include those figures as well, then it is estimated that it was over $1 billion in lost revenue because of data privacy laws, because of breach customer trust, and essentially loss of people actually signing in or checking into Marriott systems. Any questions so far? Alright, fair enough. Moving on. The target one. The target cyber attack happened in 2013, and this actually took place on Black Friday. Black Friday is one of the craziest sales in the United States. What led to this attack was, again, a zombie account, of course, because I'm talking about it. The access was of a third-party vendor. Actually, it was an HVAC vendor, and surprisingly, the third-party vendor account had pretty decent access for a contractor. The attackers got access to this account and were able to move laterally. They planted some malware to remotely skim credit card information off of POS systems. POS is point of sale. And using this system, they managed to skim the card information of around 100 million customers. Again, the monetary impact was estimated around $250 million, but this figure does not cover the legal and reputation damage that Target suffered. And the reputation damage was further enhanced because Target actually hid the data breach, and for several years until a customer pointed out that their credit card transactions had a fraudulent transactions from that particular date and time. So that covers the known victims. Let's take a look at one such case that we don't know who the victim was or who the attacker was, but we know what he did and what was the impact. What he did was he stole sensitive information and deployed a ransomware on the victim's infrastructure. What he did was pretty sophisticated. He actually got access to a dead employee's account who had recently passed away, and he tried logging in. He was able to log in. The account was kept active because the account had a serious level of privilege on it because the organization needed that account to remain functional. So again, mistake number one, if a dead employee is logging in, that should set off some flags. I mean, I know I'm talking about zombies, but zombies are not real at this time. Anyway, once the attackers were able to gain access to that particular account, they moved laterally and planted a Trojan account which had higher level of privileges than the zombie account. This happened back in 2021, so it's pretty recent. And this happened over a period of 30 days because once they had logged in, they were expecting to be blocked because a dead employee was logging in. Since no alarms were set, they began their next step, which was exfiltrating data. They managed to steal around 100 GBs of data, and they transferred it to a secure offshore location, which was the red flag number 2 that should have been set off, because if they had a DLP or data loss prevention systems in place, this should have been flagged because unauthorized data transfer outside of an organization is not allowed. Once they had done their primary task of exfiltrating the data, they just wanted to create chaos. So what they did was they took the servers offline, they deleted the current data snapshot and encrypted the backups and deployed a ransomware. Since the current systems were offline and the data backup was encrypted, there was no way that the victim could get back online on the system. So effectively they crippled the organization. The only reason that we know why this happened is because Sophos, one of the biggest security firms, was called in as the rapid response to this attack, and they published a case study. So if you want, there's a URL down there, and I'll share it with you if you want to read it more. So we have seen what a zombie account is, we have seen how are they born, we have seen what effect they can have. Now let's take a look at what we can do to prevent and protect ourselves against zombie attacks. So I have my colleague with me who can take you through the solutions and steps that you can do to protect yourself against such zombie threats. So, okay, over to you.
Thank you, Rahul. Hi everyone. So till now we have got an idea of what zombie accounts are and how they can be a critical security threat to any organization's IT infrastructure. So now we will be taking a look how we can protect ourselves against them. So just like we all took vaccine to protect ourselves against COVID attack, similarly, these are the some preventive measures that we can take to protect our IT infrastructure against this powerful army of zombie accounts. One of the tactics can be account auditing. It is the process of monitoring and reviewing each and every account that exists in our system. With this, we can check any inactive account that is no longer needed in our system. This account can be of any former employee or any contractor who has joined the organizations for a particular time, or any service account that is no longer in the use. So by this we can easily catch any possible zombie accounts before they become vulnerable and get into the hands of any malicious person. The next step can be auto deactivation process. So we can set up a mechanism within our organization which automatically detects any inactive accounts and deprovision or delete them after a set period of inactivity. So with this, all the possible zombie accounts are closed down before they they create any critical security threat for the organization. In the same line, we can have the process of access auditing. It is to review and monitor the privileges that we have assigned to each and every active account that exists in our system. So by this, we can ensure the critical access to the critical data only remains to the right people. So all of the people working in our organization need not to access each and every resource. By access auditing, we can ensure that every person have access to as much data as they want. The next one in the same line is change credential. Again, changing credential also helps us to prevent any unauthorized access to our system in the case of data leak and all. However, if it should be a strict policy from any organization or not, it is a bit controversial as of now, because as per our latest research done by an organization that works in the cybersecurity domain, it says if we are forcing our users or employees to change the credentials so frequently, they tend to create a weak password, or their new password is just 1 or 2 character addition to the older one, or by they inculcate the habit of storing the password in an insecure way, writing it anywhere. So while changing the password, we should consider these factors also. So if we have a habit of creating the weak password, then it reduces the benefits that we can have by changing the password. So with all these tactics, we can have a basic layer of security to our IT infrastructure against zombie accounts. Now, something similar as we ought to the booster dose of vaccine to further enhance our immunity. We can also have some advanced tactics to protect our IT infrastructure against these zombies. So one of these advanced tactics is implementing MFA for accessing any resource within our organization. So if MFA is enabled, and in case any credential of any employee got leaked and any attacker got the access to the credentials, they cannot directly access any resource because MFA will prevent them by enforcing a second layer of authentication. It can be OTP verification or any other MFA method. Just like Rahul discussed the case of Uber attack, in that case the attacker got the access of an ex-employee's credentials, but he cannot directly get in the system because MFA prevented him. However, we saw in that case somehow he got managed to in the system because doing some social engineering tactic, he was able to convince the employee to accept the second factor product. But in any way, having MFA adds a strong layer of security to protect ourselves from any unauthorized access. The next one in the same line can be role-based access management. So it is again, as we discussed in the second slide, the process of access auditing. It is something similar to that, but categorizing the roles for each and every privilege. So let's take an example of in any organization there are different departments, department of HR, department of accounting. So a person working in the department of HR, they need not to be access resources that belongs to the finance department. So to monitor these privileges efficiently, we can have multiple roles within our organization, and these roles will come with a predefined privilege. So we just need to assign these roles to the users, and we will be ensured that only the right people having the access to the right data. It also ensures that no employee have the access as much they need or more than they need. If this is implemented and somehow credential of any employee got leaked and attacker got into our system, they will only be accessed. They can only access the portion that was assigned to that particular employee, not more than that. So this is also a good way to prevent. But think of a scenario when an attacker targets the credential of any account that is having a very high level of privilege within our organization. These high level privileges can be of database admins or network engineers or passwords to our production server. So protect all these critical resources, we have a solution that is privileged access management. So it is a tool to protect the critical resources of any organization. These critical resources, as I mentioned earlier, can be production server where or production database where the client's like critical data is stored, or this can be any critical file or directories of any organization. So if PAM is installed in front of our critical resources, we need not to share any of these credentials directly to any admins or any users. All of the passwords of our critical resources will be stored in a secure vault within the PAM tool, and these passwords are like rotated on frequent basis. And everyone who needs access to do any activity within these critical resources, they will be accessing it through the PAM. With the PAM, we can also ensure very fine-grained access, like we can have a rule to allow the access within working hour or within a specific geographical location. So PAM also provides the functionality to like monitor and record each and every log of the activities that are being performed by these privileged accounts. So the next one in the line is awareness training. Awareness training is also very important because it doesn't matter how many tools we install, the human error always plays a vital role in any data breach or any malicious attack to our system. We all sitting here might think that we are well educated and informed individuals. We already know everything, but the person who is targeting our system, they are always one step ahead of us. So we should conduct and attend the awareness training to know what are the latest social engineering and phishing attack tactics that are in the market. So with all of these methods, we can create a strong layer of security in front of our IT infrastructure against these zombies. So with that, let's discuss a different scenario where an organization have hundreds of sites and you are working as an account admin over there. So think of a scenario where an employee of that organization leaves the company. So as an account admin, your job is gonna be checking that particular employee's account on each and every site and deactivating them manually, which is again not very efficient task, and it is going to be very time taking, and it also leaves a huge scope of human error. Suppose you just forget to deactivate his account from one of the sites, then for that particular site, that account is going to be a zombie account. So can we have a better solution to handle such scenarios? So yes, for that we have centralized your user management system. On top of that, we can implement user provisioning mechanism. So with these two things, what we can do, we just need to create the account as one centralized system, and then with the help of user provisioning mechanism, his account going to be created automatically on each connected system that he have access to. With the user provisioning, we also manage the access and privileges that this particular employee is going to have on every connected site. Now, if think of that scenario again, if that employee leaves the organization, you just need to delete his account from the centralized system, and that account is going to be automatically deprovisioned from all the connected system automatically. So this reduces the manual task. Now let's take this one step further and think of accessing all these connected system and centralized system in an efficient way. So to make the access easy, we can have functionality of single sign-on implemented within our centralized system. With the single sign-on, we can ensure that employees just need to have one set of credentials, and with that they can log in into the centralized system, and then from there they will be having access to all the connected systems that they need to perform any job. So the functionality of single sign-on provides the access management process, like it makes the access management process easy. On the top of SSO, we can also have the functionality of MFA that will ensure if due to some misfortune our credentials got lost, anyone cannot access our resources directly because MFA will prevent them. So with all of these functionalities of privileged access management, user provisioning, single sign-on, and role-based access management, we can build a comprehensive identity and access management system in front of our IT infrastructure that not just prevent from any attack, it also makes the life of admin and user very easy by reducing the manual work, making the access easy, only one set of credentials. So with that, I'll get back to the Rahul who will take this forward. Over to you.
Thanks, Satya. We'll speed through this last bit because we're sort of running low on time. So in this zombie and parasite infected world, how do you ensure that you don't get bit? How do you ensure that you carry on living in this world? So the primary method, as my colleague mentioned, is avoiding manual stuff. Don't create your account, don't delete your account, have an automated system in place that can help you patch the gaps of accounts slipping through and becoming zombies over time. The next one is having SSO and MFA. When my colleague mentioned SSO, you might have thought that if you are having a single set of credentials, then it might be easier for an attacker to hack just one set of credentials. But that's not the case, because since we are reducing the attack surface, we can protect that attack surface even more. Then we have account auditing and logging. Account auditing and logging is an important feature that should have been in place in case of the ransomware, because dead guy was accessing, data was being transferred, so many of the red flags should have been caught and this attack would have been prevented. And lastly, we can deploy a comprehensive PAM solution. PAM is a pretty deep topic to go into. I could do an entire session on it, but if you like to know more, just come by our booth and I'll be able to explain it to you better. You might think I overlooked the awareness trainings part, but no, I did that on purpose just to emphasize that most of us do overlook awareness trainings. It is important for us to know what the attack tactics are, what the tools used are, and what other crimes are happening so that we can be prepared against them. So all that being said, I'll conclude my session and that's it. Stay safe out there. Thank you.